Unexplained Terror, 7 Sinister Churches Haunted by Demonic Entities Revealed to the Cursed. The small suburb of Willow Creek, Ohio, trembled under the weight of whispers. Residents exchanged nervous glances as they navigated the fraying edges of their town, their lives shadowed by economic despair. The news screamed tales of hapless children vanishing near forgotten places, the 7 ancient churches littering the landscape, each one more sinister than the last, luring innocence into their dark embrace. Christine, a 38-year-old single mother, worked tirelessly at the local diner. Late shifts left her spent, pulling the weight of bills behind her like an anchor. The greasy smell of food mixed with the restless sighs of weary faces weakened her spirit. What she didn't know was how deep the darkness ran in her neighborhood. Jake, her sensible 16-year-old son, tried to shield his younger sister, the imaginative Lily, from the growing anxiety wrapping around their house like creeping ivy. But with every story he overheard, the feeling of doom nestled deeper in his heart. The chatter of missing children turned to shrill whispers when he saw the old church across the street standing stark and silent. The rumors of it harboring something sinister bled into the air, cold and unsettling. As he headed home one evening, he was jolted by the sight of Lily, giggling, clutching a crumbling doll, a gift from her new friend. "He said I could come play," she exclaimed with glee. Jake felt a chill dance down his spine, the playful spark in her eyes turning metallic, as if something dark flickered beneath surface. Panic unfurled when visions of the lost children flickered through his mind, hollow laughter echoing like an ancient chant. The more Jake tried to dismiss it as stress, the sharper reality bit back. Then came the news report that twisted his stomach into knots, a string of disappearances, all near those cursed churches. The images of smiling faces turned ghostly, each child reported to hear whispers calling them into the shadows. He picked up the phone to warn the police, but their dismissive tones sliced through him like a knife. "Just kids, don't worry." But how could he not? The night sky draped over Willow Creek, every sound made the hairs on the back of Jake's neck stand up. "Lily, we should go check that church," he said, heart pounding as they ventured toward the looming structure. Their flashlights swept over chipped pews and dust-laden altars, shadows dancing as if alive. Panic surged through him, but the innocence of Lily's laughter pulled him back momentarily, until he noticed how her expression flickered. "Lily?" he croaked, breath hitching at the way her eyes glazed over. They seemed distant. Was she still here with him? Then reality crashed in. The pastor approached, darkening their thoughts with a veiled smile. "Come with me, kids," he said, voice sweetly alluring yet dripping with something more opaque. In that moment, Jake's heart thundered with realization. The safety they sought could be entwined in the very darkness they feared. The elders of the community, bleeding smiles, possibly knew what remained hidden, feeding the shadows. He clutched Lily's hand tightly, fear boiling over. Was she truly his sister? Or had the darkness already claimed her? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Desperation clawed at him. "No!" he shouted as he yanked Lily close. The shadows shifted, the pastor's grin widening, almost inviting. With every dizzying heartbeat, he felt the cold sweat trickle down his neck. They backed away, adrenaline spiking through every vein. The church bells tolled, powerful echoes resonating in his bones. Now the question loomed: how deep did the darkness go? How far would Jake have to plunge to save his sister from whatever had called her into the abyss? With turmoil swirling in his gut, he steeled himself. Was it too late to uncover the truth? They couldn't lose Lily to the sinister allure of the unknown. Jake felt the icy grip of fear tighten around his throat as he and Lily stumbled back, the pastor's figure a looming shadow against the flickering light. The smile he wore twisted into something predatory, eyes glinting with a darkness that seemed to consume the faint glow of their flashlights. "Why do you both wish to leave?" he asked, feigning innocence. "Your friend is waiting." Lily's giggle echoed eerily, weaving through the musty air like a ghostly wisp. "I can play forever," she declared, her eyes flickering with an unsettling brightness. Jake's heart sank further, grappling with the sense that this wasn't his sister anymore. She seemed entranced, swaying slightly as if beckoned by invisible hands. "No, Lily. We're going home." Jake's voice cracked, desperation clawing at the edges of his sanity. He tightened his grip on her arm, ready to pull her away. But in that instant, the walls of the church seemed to creak and groan, the shadows shifting as if alive. Whispers slithered through the raw silence, tugging at the corners of his mind, seductive yet sinister. "Don't be afraid, child," the pastor said smoothly, stepping closer. "Here, all pains vanish, all fears dissolve. Come, join us." Jake's stomach twisted, every instinct screaming at him to flee. The congregation of shadows seemed to pulse, keying into the pastor's beckoning. In that moment, fear morphed into raw determination. "Lily, look at me," he shouted, forcing her gaze to meet his. "We need to leave. Now." For a fleeting second, the haze in her eyes lifted, revealing the innocent sister he adored. "Jake?" she whispered, confusion flickering across her features. But it was short-lived. The pastor's presence grew heavier, like an inescapable weight, pushing against them with malevolent force. "Foolish boy," the pastor sneered, a bat-like shadow growing behind him. "You cannot stop what has already begun." In response, Jake pulled Lily with all his might, dragging her away from the sinister charm that swathed the pastor. Fear and adrenaline coursed through him as they burst into the night, the heavy church doors slamming behind them. The air outside felt sharp, almost electric, but safety seemed just out of reach. They didn't stop running until they reached the safety of the streetlight, gasping and trembling with panic. He wasn't really a pastor, was he? Lily's voice quivered, the girl Jake knew momentarily breaking through the dark veil that had clouded her mind. "No, Lily. He wasn't," Jake managed, still watching the shadowy silhouette of the church, its sinister aura pulsating in the darkness. "We have to tell Mom. She needs to know." As they turned to retrace their steps home, unease settled back into their bones, chilling them to their core. They had escaped the church, but the specter of its influence lingered, haunting their footsteps. What if those whispers followed them? What if the pastor had sent out something more sinister into the night? With every step, the weight of dread grew heavier. Jake glanced over his shoulder, expecting to see the pastor or worse lurking in the shadows. But there was only silence and unsettling calm that prickled against his skin. Then, from the corner of his eye, he saw a movement near the church's entrance. A flicker of a silhouette appeared, hunched and grotesque. It stared directly at them, a smile stretching across a visage that felt fundamentally wrong. Jake's heart raced as the realization sunk in. They had not escaped. They had merely summoned the darkness. With a sudden, dreadful certainty, he understood that the fight for Lily was only just beginning. What else hid in the shadows, waiting for the chance to strike? The chill of the night air clawed at Jake's skin as he and Lily stood frozen in place. A grotesque figure lingered at the church entrance, a twisted shadow with limbs that bent oddly. It seemed to writhe with darkness, pulsating in a way that made Jake's stomach turn. The instinct to run pounded in his chest, but he couldn't leave Lily. "Not like this." "Jake, what is that?" Her small voice trembled, eyes wide with a blend of fear and confusion that pierced through the haze. For a moment, it felt as if they were children again, playing make-believe. But this was no game. "I don't know," he whispered, barely able to form the words. "But we have to go." He gripped her arm tighter, pulling her away from the malevolent gaze of the creature, but a low chuckle echoed from behind them, a sound that clawed up Jake's spine like nails on a chalkboard. "Leaving so soon?" The pastor's voice oozed from the darkness, smooth as oil yet drenched in malice. "Your sister is only beginning to understand her true potential." "Isn't that right, Lily?" Jake turned to see the pastor stepping out of the shadows, with the congregation of twisted, stretched shadows lingering around him, merging and separating like wisps of fog. Panic thrummed in Jake's bones. He had to think fast. "Why are you doing this?" Jake shouted, scrambling for any semblance of courage. "She's just a kid." "She is much more than that," the pastor replied, eyes gleaming with a sickly delight. "She is a gateway, an opportunity to play, to evolve." Lily tilted her head, a strange grin creeping back onto her face, reinforcing Jake's fear that he was losing her. "I can be more, Jake," she said. And just like that, any trace of his sweet sister seemed to vanish as dark energy washed over her. "I can stay forever." "No!" Jake roared. "You're better than this, Lily. Fight it." His voice echoed into the night, bouncing off the walls of the church, but it felt weak against the gathering tide of darkness. Something was moving in the shadows, a whispering presence that slithered through the air. He could feel it curling around his thoughts, drawing him into a paralyzing despair. "Don't listen to him, Lily," Jake pleaded, stepping between her and the pastor. "Please." But her gaze remained locked on the pastor, a mesmerizing swirl of maltreatment and adulation. The shadows surrounding them thickened, weaving in and out as if they were sentient strands of a sinister web. "You can't save her, boy," the pastor taunted, leaning closer. "This is her fate now, our fate." In that moment, every creeping doubt he had came crashing down. He was all alone. Panic surged again, as if the shadows themselves were creeping inside him. He tore his eyes from Lily and the pastor, forcing himself to focus on the street ahead. They had to make it to the car home. Just as he turned to sprint, a sharp rasp echoed behind them. Jake paused, heart hammering. A line of shadowy figures emerged, their features indistinct but their intent clear. They blocked the path, filling the air with an overwhelming dread, pulling at Jake's mind with whispered threats. Goosebumps cascaded down his arms as they leaned closer, the shadows flickering like forgotten memories. "I won't let you take her," Jake shouted, feeling the weight of despair dragging him down like a lead weight. He stumbled backward, looking for another way, feeling the walls close in. A low growl reverberated from the depths of the shadows, and he knew there was no turning back now. They had come out to play, and Jake was the prey. A desperate thought flashed in his mind. What if he turned his back on Lily? What if she was lost forever? A swirl of emotions crashed through him: fear, sorrow, rage. As they lashed toward him, a fierce scream escaped Jake's throat. "Lily! Please!" The shadows faltered, and for an instant, everything stilled. He met her gaze, searching for any sign of the sister he loved. But those eyes were now open doors to an abyss, promising far more than he could comprehend. Then, in that fleeting moment of hesitation, he understood. It wasn't just her he had to save. It was himself. With adrenaline surging, Jake tore past the nefarious silhouettes, rushing back toward the church. He needed answers. What had they unleashed? Who were they really, and why was Lily chosen? The echoes of laughter behind him darkened the air, but he wouldn't look back. Not now. He had to uncover the truth before it consumed them both. What lay within the church's walls now awaited, ready to reveal something far more terrifying than he had ever imagined. What secrets would he find in the depths of that cursed place? Jake barreled through the church doors, his heart thrumming wildly. The air inside was stifling, thick with a pungent mix of dust and decay. Shadows seemed to writhe in every corner, taunting him like the figures outside. "Where are you?" he whispered, scanning the dimly lit interior. The stained glass windows stood jagged against the night, their colors muted and darkened. The flickering candlelight cast eerie patterns on the wooden pews that felt alive, almost undulating underfoot. Jake felt as if he was walking through a living nightmare, a dark echo of memories that shouldn't exist. The pastor's mocking words echoed in his mind, "Your sister is a gateway." What did that even mean? Panic surged again, churning in his gut. He had to find out what was happening, not just to Lily but to this entire cursed place. "Lily!" he shouted, voice wavering. "Can you hear me?" Silence swallowed his words, but he sensed something, a shiver of energy thrumming in the air. Steeling his resolve, he marched down the aisle, every step echoing in the cavernous space. As he reached the altar, he noticed an array of ancient symbols etched into the floor, glowing faintly with a sickly green light. They pulsed in time with his heartbeat, pulling him closer, promising answers and danger. Then he felt it. A cold breath on the back of his neck. Jake spun around, heart leaping into his throat. The pastor stood there, eyes shimmering as if reflecting an abyss. "You shouldn't have come back," he hissed, voice layered with a symphony of whispers. "Where's Lily?" Jake demanded, voice quaking as he tightened his fists. "Safe for now," the pastor replied, an unsettling smile creeping across his face. "But she'll be needing a guide." Panic exploded in Jake's chest. "A guide? What are you talking about?" "Your sister's awakening has begun," the pastor cooed. "You could still join us." Think of the possibilities. Before Jake could react, the shadows in the church surged forward, stretching and swirling like dark fabric coming to life. He stumbled backward, heart racing, desperation threatening to swallow him whole. "Get away from me!" he shouted, but no sound escaped as the shadows engulfed him. He felt them wrapping around his limbs, pulling him into their embrace. Memories flooded his mind: sunny days with Lily, laughter, fleeting glimpses of life that felt impossibly far away. And then darkness. A flicker of despair twisted his stomach in knots. "No!" Jake screamed, fighting against the encroaching blackness. He could not lose her. A surge of raw emotion exploded from him. "I will not let you take us." With a final, intense force of will, Jake shattered the grip of the shadows, breaking free from their clutches. He raced toward the altar, desperate for anything that might help. The symbols beneath him pulsed more erratically, illuminating a dark ritual taking shape before his eyes. Huddled precisely in the center was a small altar, adorned with twisted remnants, photographs, trinkets, forgotten tokens of people who had been lost. He couldn't linger. The realization that he was running out of time pushed him. But what was that sound? A soft whisper, like a gentle lullaby, wound through the air and wrapped around him. "Jake, join me." It was Lily. The tone pulled at his heartstrings, mixing fear with a haunting sweetness. Could it be her? What happened to the little girl he loved? Could he still find her amidst the tide of malevolence threatening to consume them? Without a moment's hesitation, he followed the sound, weaving through the shadows, twisting around him, eyes darting wildly. "Lily!" he called out again, voice strained. "I'm coming." The weight of despair threatened to bury him as he raced deeper into the depths of the church. Within the wrought iron doors ahead, a bright light glimmered, refracting the shadows that twisted maliciously around it. He felt a pull, a magnetism, raw yet enticing. What lay just beyond that glowing threshold? Would it be salvation or doom? Before he could brace himself, Jake stepped through the doors, heart pounding against his ribs, breath caught in his throat. What awaited on the other side could be the end or something far worse. All he knew was time was slipping through his fingers, and with it, Lily's very soul. Jake stumbled through the wrought iron doors and into the light, which engulfed him in a warm embrace, as if promising safety after his harrowing journey. But this warmth was superficial, slowly revealing an unsettling peculiarity. He stood in what seemed like a vast chamber filled with glowing crystals jutting from the walls. They reflected ominous shadows, their brilliance muted by an undercurrent of darkness that twisted through the air like tendrils of smoke. The whispers grew louder, invading his thoughts, pulling him to the center of the room. "Lily!" he called, voice echoing off the walls, ripe with dread. He stepped forward, scanning the chamber for any sign of her, but there was nothing, just the faint flickering of crystal light and the weird, synchronizing pulse of something alive in the air. "Come to me, Jake," the voice cooed again, deceptively sweet. He recognized it this time, unmistakably. It was Lily, but it carried a tone that made his skin crawl. It felt off, like a reflection in a funhouse mirror, familiar but distorted. "Where are you?" He felt the adrenaline coursing through his veins, pushing him forward even as his instincts screamed for him to turn back. In the middle of the chamber, at the base of a massive altar made of the same glowing crystals, stood a figure almost like a statue, shrouded in a silver mist that spiraled upward. Jake squinted, his heart racing. "Lily!" he shouted again, desperate to break through the menacing beauty that surrounded him. The mist peeled back, revealing a face that looked just like hers. But the eyes were different, they were dark, fathomless pools devoid of innocence. "Jake, I've been waiting for you." The voice had changed, echoing now with layers of energy that distorted every word, twisting them into something sinister. His heart dropped. "This isn't you. Get away from that altar." Panic surged, every nerve screaming. He backed away, but the crystals pulsed in rhythm with his fear, and the chamber around him began to shift. "Come to me." She beckoned again, the tone wrapping around him like a serpent. "Join us, brother, you don't understand the power we have." Jake's mind churned. Power? Was this what the pastor meant? And why did it sound like seduction? "No!" he shouted, shaking his head fiercely. "You're not my sister. You're not Lily." The shadows began swirling again, pooling around the altar and coalescing into shapes, glimpses of lost faces, shadows of despair echoing his fear. Jake's breath came quicker, nearly choking him. He felt the world tilting, the very fabric of reality threatening to fray and snap. "No!" The shadows deepened, reaching out toward him, cold fingers brushing against his skin. "You can't escape. It's too late, Jake. She belongs here now." He could feel the ground shake beneath him, the altar vibrating with an alien life force that tugged at the boundaries of his mind. Images flooded him, a life where he and Lily wielded power beyond comprehension, where shadows were allies rather than foes, but just as quickly, he clamped down on those thoughts, shaking his head furiously. "I want to let you take her." He could barely form the words, as if saying them loud enough might convince himself of their truth. In a moment of clarity, he remembered the symbols on the church floor. They pulsed with energy, a connection he had felt before. If he could just tap into that, perhaps he could break this hold, save his sister, and destroy whatever dark force loomed in this place. Gathering all his strength, Jake turned and sprinted back toward the altar, ignoring the dark shapes that lunged at him, roaring in rage. His pulse echoed in his ears as he raced, desperate for a way to break the spell, whatever it took. But just as he reached the altar, the ground shook violently. Crystals shattered, sending shards ricocheting around him. "You can't escape your fate," echoed the voice, louder and more menacing than ever, drowning out the chaos around him. A blinding flash lit up the chamber, blinding him momentarily, and in that instant, Jake thought he saw Lily emerge from the silver mist, struggling against the tide of shadows surrounding her. "No!" he screamed, reaching out as the light began to fade. "I'll save you." But then, darkness enveloped him once more, and the chamber erupted into chaos. What he feared most wasn't the shadows or the faceless entities, but the realization that he might never reach his sister before it was too late. What was real? The stakes grew higher with each heartbeat. Could he rescue her from a place where nightmares wove together reality and fiction? The moment swept him away, the blinding light dissolving into suffocating darkness. Jake stumbled, disoriented, the echoes of terror dancing in his mind. Where was he now? He felt the weight of despair clinging to him, thick and oppressive. He fought against it, clawing through the swirling shadows, desperate to regain control. "Lily!" His voice cracked, the sound swallowed by the chaos. He flailed around, heart racing, searching for any sign of his sister or a way out. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught his eye. A figure darted past the edge of his vision, quick and taunting. "Jake, over here." The voice was familiar yet twisted, a cruel mimicry of Lily's own. It echoed through the void, lingering like a lingering curse that he spun around, instinctively following the sound, running deeper into the eternal night. Dark shapes crawled closer, whispering, pleading, promising everything he'd ever wanted. "You can join her forever. Don't fight it." "No!" Jake shouted, wiping sweat from his brow. The darkness enveloped him, threatening to consume his resolve. He stumbled, feet tangling in an unseen web of grief and horror. The whispers grew louder, drowning out his thoughts, corrupting his memories with visions of what could have been. Then he saw her again, Lily, surrounded by a halo of darkness, eyes vacant, lips turned upward in a ghostly grin. "Jake, if you truly love me, you must embrace what I've become. Together, we'll be unstoppable." "No. This isn't you." He balked, choking on his own horrifying realization. How could she even say that? You're still my sister, I can save you." Panic knotted in his gut as the cold reality pressed down. She winked, the smile twisting into a wicked smile. "You can't save me, only embrace." The shadows that draped around her coiled and pounced, slithering around Jake's ankles like snakes, constricting tighter as he fought against their pull. With every ounce of willpower, he broke away, fueled by desperation. He recalled the symbols etched in the church, the ones shining with an ancient promise. They were filled with power and light. It was his only chance. If he could remember stumbling, he grabbed at the nearest crystal, its surface slick under his hands. He could feel the raw energy vibrating through it, shaking him to his core. "Join us." The disembodied voices called out, pulling at the frayed edges of his sanity. The altar loomed above, pulsating. He could almost hear it beckoning him, but being drawn to it felt like stepping toward madness. "No," he gasped, a sudden surge of clarity breaking through the haze. "I choose my sister." The altar roared, shaking violently as fingers of black mist reached for him, claws scraping at his mind, fueling his horror. But Jake wasn't done yet. In one swift motion, he thrust his palm against the crystal, feeling the warmth radiate, awakening memories of protection and love. "Let her go!" he screamed, voice cracking against the tide of darkness. A burst of light exploded from the crystal, illuminating the chamber, each shard of light piercing through the shadows and sending them screaming back into the void. But the darkness fought back, swirling around him, trying to drown out the light. The floor trembled beneath him, the altar shaking as Jake clawed against the chaos, focusing every ounce of strength on the shining crystal, refusing to yield that he had to do it. He had to sever the chains that bound Lily, no matter the cost. Then, just as panic threatened to overwhelm him, he caught a glimpse of Lily, stronger now, her shadow flickering like a candle caught in a storm. "Jake!" He reached out again, desperate for the connection, ready to pull her back. But then, in a bone-chilling instant, something shifted, the mist darkened, and the air turned sharp with foreboding. "Too late," whispered the shadows, a wave of cold slicing through him. "You've chosen a path of destruction." The altar shuddered again, a deep groan resounding through the air. Jake's heart raced. Was he truly making a mistake? "What have I done?" he whispered, the doubt creeping in as the shadows pressed closer. The darkness around the altar swirled feverishly, a vortex of anguish and despair. The chamber was beginning to collapse, and Jake had only seconds before he was swallowed by that void. Could he truly save her, or was he digging his own grave? It all hung in the balance as he fought back against the darkness, breathless, desperate for one final chance. But as the light began to flicker and fade, the truth loomed larger than ever. What if this was just the beginning? The light flickered, sputtering against the encroaching darkness. Each pulse felt like a warning, a countdown to oblivion. Jake's breath quickened, the chilling whispers weaving tighter around his mind, taunting him with half-forgotten fears. He could almost see Lily again, caught no longer in the web of shadows but in his heart a flicker of hope glowing wanly amidst despair. "Lily!" He called again, voice hoarse and shaking, echoing through the collapsing chamber. But with the words, the shadows responded, twisting violently, and Jake felt themselves pull at him, gnawing at his strength. "Stop it, please." Yet, the shadows only hissed, a guttural sound like 1,000 tortured souls. The altar throbbed, sending vibrations through the stone floor that he felt in his bones. "Join us," they taunted. "You can have her. Just embrace the darkness." No. He could taste the bitter fear on his tongue, could feel it settle in his gut. With each desperate movement of his fingers against the crystal's surface, he sought its warmth, its promise of salvation. But behind all the screams, a different sound emerged, a low rumble, like the growl of a beast lurking just beneath the surface. Jake's heart pounded, it was as if the ground itself were warning him away. The shadows flickered, and for a brief moment, the vacuum of night receded. He saw Lily again, her figure growing clearer, her pale visage gripping at his heart in a way he could barely bear. "Help me, Jake." Her voice cut through the chaos like a knife, real and heartfelt, though it warbled in the distance, echoing truth he couldn't quite grasp. Shadows uninterrupted by light rushed toward her, eagerly swallowing hope, fighting back tears. Jake reached out, the connection electric yet fraught with danger. The glow from the crystal intensified, illuminating Lily's frightened features. But the shadows recoiled, twisting in agony, as if the light burned them. "Let her go!" He cried once more, fury spilling through desperation, fueling his spirit. He pulled back his fist and struck the crystal again. In response, an agonized howl erupted, a cacophony of tortured souls erupting from the very walls. Each voice was a shard of pain that seeped into his mind, grasping at his memories, teasing out his deepest fears. Images spiraled, their mother's tear-stained face, the green hills where they used to play, laughter turned to muted echoes of loss. "Lily!" He shouted above the chaos, like a plea hitting the wall of despair. He could feel himself slipping, the ground shifting beneath him. Was this how it would end? Consumed by shadows, leaving no hope behind, but what was that? Amidst the tumult, he caught another flicker, not just Lily, but something else. An image in the shadows, the altar's symbols were glowing, an ancient language awakening, pulsing with life against the encroaching darkness. Jake's breath caught, electric energy coursing through his veins. The altar was alive. He hurled himself towards it, compass-like in the presence of a magnetic field, seeking truth. As his fingers brushed the awakened symbols, the dark malevolence screeched, rippling away in horror. "Together. We are powerful." The voices howled, desperation spilling over. But this time, Jake felt a voice that vibrated from within, reminding him of love and family. "No. I'm stronger. I choose the light." A piercing shock jolted through him, visions of falling, grasping hands, yearning for connection fused with reality. A barrier pushed against the shadows, urging them backward. But fleeting clarity was met with a roar of impending doom. The chamber cracked like thunder, jagged fissures crawling up the walls as they splintered, swallowing pieces of the altar into darkness. "Jake!" Lily cried again, her voice strained, sounding like both a warning and a lament. His pulse raced, every heartbeat echoing the chaos around him. He stood alone at the brink, staring down the abyss. Was this truly his fight? Or simply the beginning of a nightmare from which he could never awaken? The altar shook violently, and everything around him began to disintegrate. As the darkness surged forward once more, Jake had one final choice to make, one heart-stopping moment to retrieve the hope pinned on the edge of despair. Would he grasp onto the fading glimmer of light, or yield to the shadows that claimed to be his only ally? "Jake," the darkness hissed, seductive and sinister. "Everything will be perfect if you just let go." The walls trembled, threatening to collapse entirely. One decision left hanging in the air, heavy and palpable like the fog creeping through the church's ancient windows. What would be left of him if he chose wrong? Jake's heart rattled in his chest, a frantic drumbeat urging him to choose and act. The shadows writhed like angry serpents, their whispers growing ever more intoxicating, wrapping around him like a shroud. "Let it go, Jake," they hissed sweetly, clawing at the walls of his sanity. "Embrace the darkness. It will save you." "No." He spat the word as if it could burn the whispers away. Determination surged through him, igniting a fire in his chest. The altar pulsed with energy, each beat echoing his resolve. With one last glance at Lily, her figure fading like smoke, he slammed his palm against the glowing symbols, feeling the heat radiate through his skin, charging him with an electrifying strength. The air crackled, and the shadows recoiled, screeching in fury as the altar erupted into light. Jake felt the pull of the shadows as they clawed desperately at his legs, seeking to drag him back into despair, but he stood firm. He could feel Lily's presence, a tether pulling him closer to her. "Fight it," she begged, her voice growing strong enough to pierce through the chaos. "You can save us." With each pulse of the altar, memories surged through him like a flood. The laughter, the adventures, their shared moments of joy surged through his mind, a reminder of what they had fought for. But behind it all lurked an insidious whisper, a perfectly constructed lie. What if you fail? What if you lose her forever? "No!" Jake shouted, a guttural scream in defiance of the overwhelming terror. Emotions clashed within him, each battling for control. He could imagine her smile, sweet and bright, filling the void with warmth, reminding him of the life that was still possible. He was filled with a horror more profound than the lurking shadows, the horror of loss. Suddenly, the ground beneath him bucked violently, sending plumes of debris spiraling into the air. The sanctuary quaked as if the very earth was reacting to his resolve. He stumbled but regained his footing, jaw clenched and eyes locked onto the altar. "You have no power here," he bellowed, every word building courage, pushing the darkness back like a surge of light. The shadows roared in anguish, a bone-chilling symphony that echoed around the cavernous space. "Your hope is a lie." They seethed, slashing at him with cold tendrils. He stumbled as a chill gust of wind whipped past, an unseen force threatening to unbalance him. But amidst the chaos, he saw it, the crystal's glow brightened. The symbols flared with a fierce, undeniable light, scattering the dark like mist in sunlight. "I choose love," he declared, the words cutting through the disarray, firm and unyielding. "I'm not afraid of you." The shadows shrieked as light exploded from the altar, washing the chamber in a brilliant glow. Jake felt a surge of flame-like energy shoot through him, infusing him with strength. For a moment, the darkness faltered, retreating and twisting like a wounded animal. But it wasn't over. He caught a glimpse of Lily, reaching desperately through the thinning shadows. "Jake! Please!" In that moment, the room echoed with a terrible, frightful resonance. The distortions of light and dark warped into a monstrous visage of despair, towering over him. "You cannot save her," it thundered, voice booming like a storm. "Let the darkness embrace you. Let the end be easy." Jake faltered, fear creeping in like a slow poison. Was he strong enough? Was love enough to battle this overwhelming evil? The tremors beneath his feet intensified, cracking the stone surface, revealing a yawning abyss below, ready to swallow him whole. Time slowed, each heartbeat throbbing painfully in his temples. "Don't listen to it." He heard Lily, fierce determination ringing clear. But doubt seeped in like a fog, the abyss calling with promises of peace, of release. "Choose." The shadow roared, claws of darkness twisting on the edges of his mind. "Choose your fate." And as they surged forward, the choice loomed in front of him, heavy and suffocating. Would he dive into the heart of despair, or grasp once again for the remnants of hope, with the altar blazing behind him? Jake stood at the threshold of chaos and clarity, caught in the storm of a decision that could shatter everything he loved. The air crackled with tension, the shadows howling their last desperate pleas. Would he flee, or would he fight? The moment hung in the balance, as inevitable as the darkness closing in around him. The shadows pulsed, hungry and relentless, encroaching on Jake as he confronted the monstrous visage towering before him. His gut twisted around uncertainty, a mix of dread and determination binding him in place. Every instinct told him to flee, to escape the unrelenting grip of despair pouring from the dark figure. Yet, behind that terror, memories of laughter and light urged him to resist. Lily. The name tore from his lips, raw and desperate. She was still fighting, her form flickering as the shadows wove in and out of view. "I'm coming," he shouted, channeling every ounce of strength he had. The entity roared, a sound akin to 1,000 tortured souls wailing in unison. "You cannot save her," it bellowed, as the chilling wind howled through the sanctuary, sweeping debris wildly into the air. Jake could see the portal opening beneath him, yawning wider, like a gaping maw ready to swallow everything. The air grew thick with despair, pressing down, making it hard to breathe. He could sense the shadows crawling up his legs, their icy fingers tightening around him. With a guttural scream, he leaned into the pulsing altar behind him, urging himself to channel its energy, its warmth. "If I'm going to fight the darkness, then I'll fight for her." The altar blazed, illuminating the chamber with blazing white light that cut into the corners where shadows dared to linger. "Choose, Jake," the monstrous figure hissed, its voice slithering into his mind. "Choose the easy path." Every heartbeat felt like a countdown. What's easy is not always right. He yelled defiantly, his resolve hardening. He forged ahead, stepping deeper into the light, feeling the shadows howl in agony. "You want to take her." But as he reached for her, he felt something shift. The portal beneath him pulsed, a dark wave crashing upward, seeking to reclaim him. The shimmering light of the altar flickered ominously, a heartbeat away from going out. "Jake, please!" Lily cried, a tremor of desperation threading through her voice. The shadows grasped at her, pulling her like a moth into the flame, her light fading in the embrace of darkness. "No!" he roared, emotions roiling wildly within him. "I will not choose fear." The ground heaved again, shaking his resolve. Just when he thought it might all slip away, he stared into those abyssal eyes of the entity and the realization hit him like a thunderclap: "You're feeding on despair." Jake lifted his chin, anger flowing through his veins. "You're not stronger than love. You're nothing without fear." With that, he summoned every memory, every moment he cherished, not just of Lily, but all the good things that had filled his life. He imagined them as stones, heavy and solid, weighing down the shadows. With one final push, Jake reached for the altar, pulling on the immense power coursing through. The air crackled as it ignited violently, and the surge hit him. The shadows recoiled, screeching with rage. "No!" they howled, their grip on reality weakening. But would it be enough? The realization flashed through him, pulsing with urgency. He could not let go of hope. He had to act, to become the light against the shadow. As the altar blazed brighter, the darkness began to tear before him, splitting the ominous figure in two. Lily's eyes sparkled with hope as the light overwhelmed her, her voice rising through the chaos. Together. Jake drew a deep breath, holding on to that flicker of possibility. Would love shield them? Would it be enough for both to escape? As the darkness split apart, a chilling roar erupted from the depths of the void. "You will pay for this." Was this merely the beginning of something far worse? The ground trembled as uncertainty echoed in the cracks of the earth. Jake felt the shadows begin to converge again, their sinister whispers renewing with blood-curdling fury. Would they truly break free, or was this a fleeting chance before the darkness reclaimed everything? The final tremor rattled through him, and in the depths of chaos, the choice was no longer just his own, but theirs, and time was running out as the shadows closed in once more. The world around Jake erupted into chaos. The shadows writhed like living snakes, snaking closer, whispering temptation and terror all at once. He was acutely aware of every heartbeat, each one a countdown to their fate. "You will pay for this." The grotesque entity screeched, but Jake felt something shift inside him, a resistance that burned like a fire. "Together." Lily's voice rang clear through the maelstrom, igniting determination within him. Their connection, unbroken and fierce, channeled strength that pushed back the doubts clawing at his sanity. If he believed, if he held tightly to hope, they could truly fight. With all the intensity of a prayer, he reached out once more towards Lily. Her silhouette began to flicker amidst the oppressive shadows, the light around her shining ever so softly like a star fighting against a storm. "I won't let go. We are stronger than this," he shouted, fueled by a love that transcended fear. The moment hung in the air, heavy with dread and tension, but Jake didn't waver. He pulled the light from the altar within him and unleashed it like a tidal wave. The brilliance surged forward. The darkness recoiled, shrieking in agony, their voices blending into a cacophony that reverberated off the walls, echoed by their own fear resonating back at them. "Lily, come to me." Jake's voice was hoarse, yet filled with urgency. She hesitated only a moment, her expression flickering between her old self and the darkness that had once claimed her. "I trust you." Her whispered words fell like a delicate promise, breaking through the fog that enveloped her. With one final, fierce grasp at the connection between them, Jake leaped forward. Every pulse of light blazed through him as he felt himself merging with the power erupting from the altar. It consumed him, wrapping him in warmth, propelling him towards Lily as his heart raced. The shadows writhed and twisted, their essence breaking apart as the light tore through. Their shrieks echoed in his ears, but the voices of loved ones drowned it out. He glimpsed faces of friends and family, smiling, hopeful. His mother. Moments of laughter spiraled around him, a reminder of life, of connection, and the love that had always been there. With every step towards her, every second, the strength of their bond tightened like a lifeline. Finally, their hands met. Jake wrapped his fingers around Lily's wrist, the contact sizzling with energy as their hearts synchronized with the pulsing light. It felt electric. "We're together, now," he shouted over the chaos. "Together." In that moment, the shadows shattered, splintering into fragments of nothingness, collapsing inward under the power of their unity. The darkness exploded outward, revealing a blinding radiance that pierced through the sanctuary's shattered walls. For one endless moment, it felt as if time itself held its breath. Jake felt lightness, a freeing sensation, as if they were shedding years of pain and despair. A myriad glimmers enveloped them, glistening like constellations breaking through the night. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the world shifted. The cacophony of shadows and darkness faded, replaced by a brilliant light. Jake blinked against the brightness, the heat of it wrapping around him like a protective cloak. When his vision cleared, he found himself standing in the heart of Willow Creek. The air was crisp and clear. The sudden realism of their surroundings jolted him. They were outside, in the familiar street they knew, the diner just down the block. The sun kissed the horizon, bathing everything in gold, an elegant farewell to the darkness that had once claimed their lives. Lily stood beside him, eyes wide and innocent again, that familiar spark of mischief glimmering back. "Jake!" she cried out with a smile that could rival the sun, her voice ringing joyful and clear. "We made it." With relief flooding through every part of him, Jake pulled her in for a tight hug. "I thought I lost you, Lil," he murmured into her hair, feeling the softness that had felt so far away, but Lily laughed, a sound of pure joy, which hung in the air, free from the shadows that once loomed over their heads. "You would never. We will always be together." Jake pulled back to look at her, words tumbling into the soft evening breeze. "We have to tell Mom about everything." There was resolve in his eyes, a determination sparked by the trials they had faced. The allure of the shadows may have faded, but its memory lingered, a reminder of the power of love. Together, they began to walk down the street, whispers of hope swirling around them, a gentle melody of life that announced their return. As they ventured forth into the dimming light, a sensation lingered in the air, a promise that love conquers all, as they stepped into the bright horizon of a new day, leaving the darkness behind for good. This is your moment. You need to subscribe now, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will grip your heart. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm this incredible tale. Flood the comments section below with your reactions and theories about Jake and Lily's journey. And don't wait even one more second, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this exhilarating conclusion. Let us keep the conversation alive and thriving.